What's happening, guys? Steve here, Cars with Steve, and today we're going to be taking a look at the 2020 Ford Escape SE. This thing is the all-wheel drive version, and it's powered by a 1.5-liter EcoBoost engine, so that turbo engine. Now, a couple things to note about the engine. It's going to push out 181 horsepower and 190 foot-pounds of torque. And here's the kicker. It's doing it using a 3-cylinder system, which is incredible that Ford's been able to do that. As this SE version of the vehicle is going to give us a couple things. First thing is going to be a manual liftgate, but we've got a blind spot system and a backup camera by default. If you go for the factory towing option, you're going to be able to pull up to 2,000 pounds in this thing. Not too bad for a vehicle that size. Let's have a little bit of fun, take a look at this thing, find out what it's all about. Now, one of the nice things about Ford vehicles, the Escape is no exception, is that you can get away with using regular 87 octane gas, so your regular gas. Now, filling it up is also very easy. Just along our driver's side in the back, as you can see, there's a little panel. We're just going to press that in, we're going to pop it open, and from here, it is a capless system. So all you're going to do, take that fuel hose, insert, fill up, once you're done, pull out, and click, lock it back into place. Guys, it's really that simple. Now, looking at the key fob on this thing, so a couple things to point out. This one doesn't have remote start from the factory. You can add remote start in if you'd like, or you can get it done aftermarket. Whether it's done from your Ford dealership or an outside source, you've got the ability to do that. Now, looking at the fob itself, so looking at the top, we've got our unlock button, our lock button, as well as our horn or our panic alarm. Now, if for whatever reason you need to get into the vehicle, and for whatever reason, let's say if the key fob's not working, on the very bottom, we've got this little guy. We're just gonna pull that and crank it out, and as you can see, we've got access to our emergency access key. Click, lock it back into place. Okay, now a couple things to point out about the Escape SE. So as a default, this thing's not going to have the reverse sensing system, so that beeping that we get as we back up. Now, having said that, you can add it in either aftermarket or, if you're lucky enough, from the factory. Now, a couple things in the back as well. At the very top, we do have a backup camera. That's going to be standard across all of the Escape trim levels, so you're going to get that backup camera regardless. Okay, now getting into the back of this thing, very straightforward. In the Escape SE, it is a manual liftgate. So, just underneath the license plate, all we're going to do is press this button, and we're just going to lift up. We're set to go. So very straightforward. Let's have a little bit of a look inside. Okay, so as you can see, this thing is very spacious. Now, a couple things to point out. The rear tray can be removed completely if you want to. There also is the option to get a thermoplastic rubber tray in the back instead. Now, popping this tray up, as you can see, we've got a little bit of storage space underneath in the back. We've also got our mini spare tire with the jack that's underneath the spare tire. At the very top, we've also got a spigot. So that's what we would use in order to be able to use a jerry can to fill the vehicle up. Okay, next up, folding the seats up and down in this thing is also a very straightforward process. It is a manual process in the Escape. Let's have a peek and see how that's done. So, just along the side, there we go. Okay, so at the very top, we do have a button along the headrest. We're going to press that button in order to fold the headrest down. Looking down on the bottom now, so we've got a little lever. All we're going to do is take that lever, we're going to crank it down. As you can see, it's folded that down. It's going to be the same for the passenger and the driver's side, but let's head to the back of the vehicle again and see how it actually looks. So as you can see there, it is beautiful. It is a split seat, so a 60-40 seat. So if you need a little bit of extra space, you've got a third person, you've got the ability to be able to separate the seats out like that. Okay, now when it comes to backseat spacing, now here's the kicker. I'm 6 feet tall, so I've set the driver's seat up as if it was a person who's also 6 feet tall. As you can see, I've got maybe about an inch or so of clearance for my knees, so not a ton of space, but I mean, the Escape itself, it is a smaller, more compact vehicle. If you're looking for a bit more spacing, you'd be looking at the Edge in comparison. But there still is more than enough room for people especially if you're under 6 feet tall. When it comes to head spacing though, I've still got about 2 inches roughly of head clearance. So there's still a ton of space above me there. So if you do have some taller people, they can sit in the back with no problem. They may have to sit in the center seat just depending on how tall they are. Okay, a couple things when it comes to the rear seat. So it is a 3-seat, so this is a 5-seat configuration in the Escape. That's the maximum number of seats you can get in the vehicle. A couple things to point out along this middle seat, we do have a cup holder. So pull that down, couple cup holders there, and all we're gonna do, click it up, lock it back into place. Down along the side, so in the center console, we've got the ability to adjust whether or not the fan is blowing on or off. And then moving down, we've also got our USB connectors. So we've got our traditional USB as well as our USB-C, or the lightning adapter, just in the bottom. Okay, we've got our traditional buttons along the driver's side. So at the very top, this one is going to give us the ability to kill off power to the back windows. So if you've got a kid or a dog that's a little bit creative, you can lock it out so that the back windows can't be used. The 2 buttons are going to give us the ability to adjust the side view mirrors, and then this directional pad is going to give us the actual ability to change the mirror position. So whichever one is highlighted by pressing this button, that's going to be the mirror that you're going to be adjusting. And then we've got our traditional windows up and down. Last one to point out, we've got our lock and our unlock button, but it's along the driver's side and the passenger side door. Okay, along our steering wheel, just off to the left-hand side, we've got a couple selector switches. So there's really only 2 that I want you to be concerned about. The one at the very top, and then the third one down, I should say. So the one with the circle on it, and the one that's got the A. So the one with the circle is essentially going to turn the lights off. So our daytime and our nighttime running lamps, nothing's gonna come on whatsoever. Now when we get to the A setting though, A is gonna be our auto setting. So that's automatically going to switch between the daytime or the nighttime running lamps, depending on how bright it is outside. So I do recommend keeping that one turned on because it makes it's hassle-free for you. The vehicle essentially determines whether or not it's the daytime or the nighttime running lamps that should be on. Off to the right-hand side a little bit more, we've got our dimmer switches. That gives us the ability to make that instrument cluster screen and our Sync 3 screen brighter or darker, depending on your own personal preference. Now adjusting the steering wheel in this thing is very straightforward. Just by our left knee, we've got a little lever. We're gonna crank that lever down, and it is telescopic. So we can move the wheel in and out, up and down. Once you've got that perfect position for yourself, all you're gonna do, lock that back and, lift it up, lock it back into place, and you're set to go. In order to adjust the driver's seat, so it's very straightforward. Power driver's seat, partial power passenger seat. So we've got the ability using the front stick, we can move the seat forward or backwards, or we can go up or down with it, depending on whether you're lifting the stick up, down, forwards, backwards. To adjust our backrest is going to be this lever, so the middle one, that's going to bring the backrest backwards or forwards for us, so forwards, backwards, etc. And then the last one, this circle button, is going to be our lumbar support. So if we need a little bit of extra back support, we've got the ability to do that. Last one is going to be our headrest. So headrest is going to be adjustable. We can just pull it up in order to be able to lift it up. And then once we do that, there is a little button we can press in order to be able to lower it back down. That's going to be on the left-hand side of the driver, right-hand side of the passenger seat. Okay, so this is the screen we're going to be met with when the vehicle's first turned on. Now, one thing to note is that this one doesn't have the factory navigation built in, so that's why we're missing that navigation button. If we did have the factory navigation, it would show up in the middle. Now, having said that, do you need factory navigation? It's really a matter of personal preference if you don't want to be running off of your data plan, because the vehicle is equipped with Android Auto and Apple CarPlay capabilities. So you can use Google Maps, you can use the Waze app, you can use a number of different map apps directly through the center console screen. So it really is a matter of personal preference. Now, if for whatever reason you're not on that home page, if you need to get home, just on the very top left-hand side, we've got this little home icon. We're just going to press that, and that's going to bring us back to this basic home screen. Now, a couple things to point out. We do have the station that's currently playing. If our audio is off, it would obviously show that. And as you can see, we have the ability to add a phone in. We can add a phone in on the bottom. We can add a phone in down here also. Now, a couple things to point out. So let's start off with our audio settings in the very bottom. We've got our sources, direct tune. So our sources give us the ability to choose between AM, FM, Sirius XM, Bluetooth radio. If our phone was connected, it would show up here as an entertainment source. Jumping back, we've also got the ability to direct tune, so we can just select a station. So we're going to hit 97.7 and enter. And as you can see, it's changed the station that way. We've also got the ability to use the tuning knob, or we can use the voice button on the steering wheel in order to change stations also. Now, in order to be able to save a preset, once you've changed to a station that you'd like, all you're going to do is press and hold, and that's going to save it for you. Oh, times like these. Let's crank this and see what it sounds like. Great song. Dave Grohl, you are amazing. All right, so what we're looking at the very basics, so we've got our audio settings covered off. Let's jump into our phone settings. So as you can see, we don't have a phone that's currently connected. So what I'm gonna do is show you how the connection process works. Very straightforward. So on your cell phone, all you're gonna do is make sure you go into Bluetooth. So Bluetooth settings on, and we're just gonna give that a second. Let me zoom in, or pull this in, I should say, a little bit. We're gonna add a phone.
Search for your vehicle on your device and select it once it is found.
Okay, as you can see, that came up very quickly, but we've got the Ford Escape on the bottom. We're just gonna press that.
Confirm that the pin displayed on sync matches the pin displayed on your device.
And we're literally just following instructions. So we've got the pin there, which does match the pin on the screen. So we're gonna hit pair and yes.
For your safety, please stay alert to changing road conditions and use Sync's voice-activated features while your vehicle is in motion.
Perfect. And allow contacts. Yes, we want to allow. That's the reason why we're connecting our phone. So we're going to hit allow. Now, a couple things to point out on the screen. So the phone is now connected. We've got a couple options to select. 911 Assist is going to, if you're in an accident with your phone connected and the vehicle senses that you're in an accident, it's automatically going to dial 911 for you. So I absolutely recommend keeping that one turned on. Automatic contact download. If there's a change to your contacts when the phone's connected, it'll automatically download those as well. So I do recommend keeping that one on also. Now, as you can see, we've got a ton of options. We've got the ability to look at my recent calls, my phone, my contacts, all that fun stuff. My phone is fully connected. If we jump into apps, I've got LiveX Live, which is a radio app. You can use Spotify and things like that directly through the center console screen. So rather than having to flip through your phone, you can do it on this center console screen instead, which is amazing. It's great that you've got the capabilities to do that. If we were hooked up for Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, it would give us that capability. It would show us here as well. Now, a couple things to point out. If we wanted to get rid of the phone, we just go to settings into phone. We can view devices. We can set a ringtone. We can look at the roaming warning and a number of other things. To delete a phone, it's very straightforward. We're just going to go to our devices. We can either add in another device, or we can look at my existing device. We can either disconnect or we can remove it. So removing it is literally just that. So we'll remove, yes. And as you can see, the phone is now completely disconnected. So guys, it really is that simple. Jumping back into phone, it's now gone. So on the app screen, if your phone's connected or if you've got some apps that have been downloaded to the vehicle, they would show up. Now, the big ones that you're going to be using typically would be things like Spotify, LiveX Live, or the Waze app directly through the console screen. Jumping into our settings, we've got a ton of options now. Basic sound settings are going to give us the ability to change out the treble, mid-range bass, all that fun stuff. Looking at our clock, by default, it's going to be the 12-hour time. So if you prefer the military time instead, all you're going to do is hit this 24-hour mode. Really a matter of personal preference. And then we've also got the ability to reset the clock to our GPS time. So based off of the current location of the vehicle. Moving back, Bluetooth, we've got a couple of capabilities here. So we've got the ability to turn Bluetooth on or off, or we can add a Bluetooth-enabled device, whether that's a cell phone, a Bluetooth-enabled MP3 player, iPad, whatever the case may be. And from down,
search for your vehicle on your device and select it once it is found.
So we've got the ability to add a phone in using this button here also. On the very bottom, we've got our radio. So we've got the radio text and the preset pages. So preset pages by default are going to be set at 2. We can go up to 6 preset pages, but look what that does. When we jump back into audio, so as you can see, we now have up to 30 presets that are now going to be saved. The text is the information that's going to come up. Whether that shows up or not, a matter of personal preference. Back into settings, we've got some driver assistance settings now. So tons of options. Our lane keeping system, that's the system that's going to automatically pull us back into our lane, or it's going to give us a steering wheel shake depending on how we have it configured. With our lane keeping mode, we've got 3 options. So the alert is going to be a steering wheel shake. So if we start to veer over into another lane without signaling, it's going to shake the steering wheel, almost as if you're running over that rumble pavement. The aid is the one that's going to recenter you and pull you back into your lane, and then the alert and the aid will do both. So it's going to give you a little bit of a steering wheel shake, and it's going to recenter you. It's going to pull you back out of that way, back into your lane, I should say. The alert intensity is the intensity on that steering wheel shake. What does it feel like? Play around with the 3 settings so that you can feel what it's like. It's just the intensity of that steering wheel shake. Pre-collision assist, I absolutely recommend keeping this one on. If the vehicle recognizes that there's potentially going to be a collision, it's going to pre-charge the brakes for you. If you don't automatically respond yourself, the vehicle will do it for you. It'll brake in order to try to either avoid or minimize the impact of the collision. Rear camera delay, whether or not the rear camera is delayed or whether it comes on instantly when we switch it into reverse. Moving back, we've now got our blind spot system. So our blind spot system, let's flip you over a little bit. So blind spot system is going to be, where are we? Right there, that little guy. So that's going to highlight orange whenever somebody's entered the blind spot on either side of the vehicle. All right, so whether or not that one's on, matter of personal preference. Cross traffic alert, if a vehicle's coming perpendicular from you, so either from the left or the right, whether you see it or not, the vehicle will, and it will let you know if there's a potential collision. If you don't want that one, you can get rid of it. The driver alert is tied into the lane keeping system, so if you get too many warnings as you're veering over into lanes without signaling, it will let you know that you should probably rest. Last one is going to be the traction control. So we've got the ability to turn traction control on or off. Typically, you're going to do that if you're off-roading or if you're doing wintertime driving. And those are going to be our basic driver assistance settings. Next up are going to be some vehicles settings, and jumping in. So how long is the vehicle going to idle for? We can do 30 minutes max, or we can turn it off so the vehicle will stay on all the time. My key is actually an interesting one. It gives you the ability to create a key with certain limitations. So that might be that the volume can only go past a certain level, or the radio won't play unless the seatbelt's in. The other one is the speed limiting. So if you want to make sure that a child doesn't go past, let's say, 120 kilometers an hour, or if you want to play a prank on a spouse, you can create a my key, and you can limit the speed based on the key fob that's in the vehicle. Onboard modem serial number, very straightforward. Now, as I mentioned, this specific one doesn't have remote start built into the vehicle. I should say we don't have remote start added in. You can add it in aftermarket or directly from the factory. Remote start setup. So if you do get remote start added in, what happens with the remote start? So we can either turn the system off completely. We can look at climate control. So climate control, when the vehicle's remote started, what happens? Is it going to automatically let the vehicle determine what the cabin temperature should be, or is it going to be based off of the last setting? Our seats, when the vehicle's remote started, do our heated seats come on as well? And then the duration of the remote start. Do we want it to last for 5, 10, or 15 minutes? And next up are going to be our wipers. So our wipers, we've got the reverse wiper and then the courtesy wiper. So we've got the ability to turn the reverse wiper off if you want to. The courtesy wipe, what that's going to do is when the vehicle's first turned on, it's going to wipe for you once. I do recommend keeping that one off, and the reason why is because if for whatever reason, wintertime driving in Canada, northern United States, etc., there is going to be ice buildup on those windshield wipers. So I do recommend keeping that one off, especially because you don't want to damage the motor. Again, really a matter of personal preference. Next up is going to be our lighting. So with the lighting, auto high beam, I do recommend keeping this one on. You can control the high beams from the stick on the left-hand turning stick, absolutely. But the auto high beam setting, that's automatically going to turn the high beams on. And then if it senses a vehicle, if the vehicle senses an oncoming vehicle, it's automatically going to dim those lights for you before turning them off completely. And we've got our locks. So locks auto unlock is when the vehicle senses that the key fob is in your pocket, or if the key fob is close to the vehicle. And remote unlock, when the vehicle is remote unlocked, what happens? Is it all doors that get unlocked, or is it just the driver's door? So really a matter of personal preference. And our intelligent access is based on the key fob. Again, making sure once you've got the key fob in your pocket, do the doors get unlocked as you pull on the handle. Those are going to be our basic vehicle settings. So with the exception, let's jump in the very bottom, our door keypad code. So the keypad code is a 5-digit combination that lets you get access to the vehicle without the actual fob. You can set it up so that there are different key codes available as well. It is going to be a 5-digit factory one by default, and you can add in a few other ones, again, if you've got a 5-digit number that you'd rather use instead. Ford Pass Connect. So the vehicle is equipped with an onboard modem, so you can use it as a wireless hotspot for up to 10 devices. Very straightforward. You do have to have a mobile data plan in order for that to work. That's going to be through Bell in Canada, Sprint down in the US. So vehicle hotspot, you can turn it on and off directly from this part of the screen. And scrolling over, Wi-Fi. So the vehicle is equipped with the ability to add in a Wi-Fi connection as well. Where you're going to use that is if you're at home and you're going to be doing the automatic updates. So I do recommend making sure automatic updates is turned on, because it's automatically going to update the software and the firmware on the vehicle for you. The only thing that's not going to get updated, if you have the maps, it's not going to update the maps for you as well on Sync 3. Looking in some general settings, so we've got the ability to change our language, English, Spanish, French, our temperature, either Celsius or Fahrenheit, measurement units, kilometers, and liters per 100. You've got the ability to also switch between miles per gallon. Again, really a matter of personal preference, whether you're in Canada, US, or if you just have a general preference. Tire pressure, we've got a couple settings. Now this beep that we're getting, we've got the ability to turn that off just with this touchscreen beep, so really a matter of personal preference. Other one to point out is going to be, very bottom, our master reset. So if for whatever reason, if you're selling the vehicle, if the screen's giving you some troubles, just do a master reset, and that's going to set it back to our factory defaults. And back, 911 assist, as I mentioned, the vehicle will automatically dial 911 for you if it recognizes that you've been in a collision. So I do recommend keeping that one turned on. So using the mobile apps, there are some apps that are going to be available. You can use it in the center console screen. A few of them are going to be the Waze app, Spotify, LiveX Live, things like that. Our display mode. So display, we've got a couple options. So we can either turn the display off completely, press the screen to turn it back on. We can get a little bit more of a calming screen instead. Same thing, press in order to reactivate. Now let's jump back into settings. And we've got a couple different modes. So we can select the brightness, we can change that out, but we've also got daytime, nighttime, or the auto mode. Auto mode means the vehicle's automatically going to switch between that day or nighttime mode, just depending on how bright it is outside. But I personally love the look of the nighttime mode just because I love the color blue, so let's give that a second to update. So I think that looks really, really sharp, but again, that's just a matter of my own personal opinion. So you can go to auto if you want the vehicle to determine if you're going to be in that daytime or nighttime mode. Give it a second there to update, and there we go. Jumping back out, last two. So last one is going to be our voice control. So voice control settings gives us the ability to use the button on the steering wheel to do a few things. With the advanced mode, that one is an interesting one. I want you to listen for a second. Tune to 94.9.
Tuning to FM 94.9.
Okay, so we got a confirmation that the vehicle is going to be changing to a different station. Now, when we change the advanced mode and turn it on, we're going to do that again. Tune to 97.7. Okay, nothing. We didn't get any sort of message whatsoever, but if we jumped back to audio, so you can see it has changed the station for us. So when we're in the advanced mode, we just won't get as many warnings and confirmations, things like that. Phone confirmation, when you're making a phone call, what happens? We absolutely want to make sure that we've got our phone confirmation on. So we're going to turn that one on. It's, do you want to call this person? Yes or no. Voice command list is going to be the list that comes on when we press the voice command button. So this is the list that would pop up. Again, matter of preference whether or not that one comes up for you. Lastly is going to be our valet mode. So valet mode essentially locks the screen out if you've got a valet driver or as a general security thing. Especially if your phone's connected to the vehicle, people technically could scroll through, look at text messages, contacts, and things like that. So in order to lock the screen out, all we're going to do is enter a 4-digit code. Nice and difficult. Please don't use 000, use something a bit more challenging, but as you can see, it's locked the screen out now, so I can't do anything on the screen until I re-enter that 4-digit combination. And we're gonna hit done, and then as you can see, it's now fully unlocked the screen for us. Jumping back home, that's gonna be the Sync 3 screen here in a nutshell. Okay, so moving down the console screen, off to the left-hand side, we've got our volume rocker. So we've got the ability to turn the volume up, down. We can tune manually using this rocker knob. This one is going to give us the ability to go into our sound settings, so treble, mid-range, bass. It's essentially just a hotkey. Press it again to get rid of it. These two are going to give you the ability to switch between either stations, or if our phone's connected or a Bluetooth-enabled MP3 player, we can switch between songs. If our phone or MP3 player connected, we can either play or pause pressing this button. This last one is going to be the ability to give us that calming screen. Press it again to turn the screen off. Press it again to turn everything back on. Moving down a little bit, we've got our 4-way blinkers, so our hazard lights. These are going to be for the fan, for our left versus our right side. Moving down a teeny little bit. Okay, and what do we have down here? So, off to our left-hand side is going to be our fan control. So we've got the ability to select our fan speed off on the left. On the right-hand side, this is what we're going to use in order to be able to change the temperature. So one thing to point out is that this one is only a single zone climate control. We'd have to look at higher trim levels to get the dual zone. Air conditioning button, that would turn on the AC. This is going to be our air circulation button. So air circulation with the button on, it's going to circulate air throughout the cabin for you. With the button off, it's going to pull air from outside and bring it in. Now this gives us the ability to select where is the fan blowing, either to the windshield, to our face, or to our feet. We can go max windshield defroster or a rear window defroster. And we've also got the ability to go auto, which gives the vehicle the ability to select what the temperature in the cabin is. Last one is going to be our max air conditioning. And then on the very bottom, we've also got our heated seats. So single button press turns it on full, and then from there we can lower it down. Just underneath, we've also got a USB port, as well as our traditional cigarette lighter adapter. Moving down a tiny little bit. And from here, we've got our selector switch. So this is something that's different in the 2020 model. It used to be an actual shifter knob. So it's moved into the edge, I should say, rotary dial. So all we're going to do is make sure that our foot's on the brake, and then we can switch between our different drive modes. This is going to be a low drive mode setting. From here, we've got our cup holders, we've got our parking brake. So we're going to lift up in order to turn the parking brake on. In order to turn it off, we're going to make sure the brake is pressed, and we're going to push down. This is our auto hold setting. So the auto hold setting, the way that works is if you're stopped at a light and you take your foot off the brake, it's going to hold the vehicle in place for you. This is our auto engine start stop. So the auto engine start stop is essentially going to kill power to the engine when we're stopped at a light. So it doesn't happen all the time. It is sporadic. The vehicle essentially chooses when it wants to do it. Last one is going to be our different drive modes. So we've got our normal, eco, sport, slippery, deep snow and sand, and then back to our normal again. The deep snow and sand slippery conditions are going to be the ones that turn the traction control off automatically, or you can do it through the center console screen instead. Hey, next up, let's take a peek at the steering wheel. So starting off on our bottom left-hand side, we've got the ability to either increase or decrease the audio. We can completely mute. This is going to be our cruise control setting. So this is the regular cruise control system. It's not the adaptive cruise control. So turning the cruise control on, we're just going to press that button. As you can see, set's turned on there, which means that we know that the system's activated. Once we're at the speed that we're we're either going to lift this up or down, and that's going to set us at our current speed. From there, we can either increase or decrease 1 kilometer or 1 mile per hour at a time. If we hit the brake, that's going to turn the system off temporarily. We would just hit this reset button to bring us back up to the speed we were set at, or we can completely cancel it out from there. And we've got the ability to turn the system off again. Okay, now off to the right-hand side. So a couple things to point out. We've got our menu button, our up and down button, which is going to let us change a few things out. And then we've also got our back button. So in order to be able to reset the trip counter, all we're going to do is press and hold the OK button, and that's going to reset the values for us. So very straightforward in order to be able to do that. Now we've also got a series of different screens, and those are going to give us individual settings for each screen. So we're going to start off, let's go with our trip counter. If we press the menu button, that's going to pull up a few options. So we can look between trip 1, trip 2, or we can reset or configure the view. Scrolling down, we've now got My View, which again, same thing. We can look at the My View, so whatever shows up on that screen. So again, matter of personal preference, what actually shows up. And moving down another screen, we've got the driver assistance settings. So driver assistance settings, that's going to be our lane keeping system. Whether that's on or off is going to depend on this. So we've got a button just on the very end of the tip here. So that's going to be our lane keeping system. So as we can see, our lane keeping system, whether that's on or off, is going to depend on whether or not we've got that button selected. So as you can see, the system's now turned on. So the lane centering system is essentially the one that's going to pull us back into our lane if we start to veer over without signaling. Moving down, now we've got the ability to look at our audio sources, so we can select different sources. There are obviously no sources that are active right now because the system is off. So turning it back on, we've got, as you can see, some text that's showing up. And moving up, actually, let's go into our basic settings. So that's going to let us change between either AM, FM, Sirius XM, or if our phone was connected, we could look between our different settings. Moving down, if our phone was connected, it would show up. Basic information for the vehicle, so seatbelts, are the seatbelts on, yes or no? Auto start stop, so we've got the button that's in the center console screen. We've also got the ability to look at whether it's operational or not. Driver alert, so that one's tied into that other center screen setting that we were looking at. So if we get too many alerts, it's essentially going to add the bars up as we go. Once we get to too many lane keeping warnings in a short period of time, it's going to let us know that we should probably rest. Intelligent all-wheel drive, we can see which wheel is active. As I mentioned, this one is the all-wheel drive. There also is a front-wheel drive version of the vehicle. Now, the intelligent all-wheel drive is essentially all-wheel drive on the fly, so it's automatically going to put power to the tires just depending on what the vehicle feels like it needs. And we've got the My Key info, so we've got the ability, as I mentioned, to set up the My Key. That would be done through the center instrument, so the center screen, so using this screen to set that My Key up. tire pressure, which shows the active tire pressure for the vehicle. And lastly is going to be our oil life reset. So when we get an oil change, we can do that reset using that button. And moving down, so that's going to be that basic instrument cluster there. Off to our right-hand side, we've got the ability to select how much windshield wiper fluid comes out. We can turn our windshield wipers on or off by using this stick. And on the very end of this one, this little guy is going to turn on our rear windshield wiper. Last one is going to be our left stick. We pull that in order to turn the high beams on, flip away to turn them on as well. All right, guys, next up, let's take this thing for a spin and see how it handles. Now, I have been in the Escape before. I was in the Escape S a couple weeks ago. I've been in the Escape Titanium Hybrid, the SEL also, and in varying engines. So whether it's the 1.5 liter turbo, the 2 liter turbo, I'm just curious to see what this thing's gonna be like in comparison. So let's have a little bit of fun. So as you can see, I've got the auto hold setting on. So that's why we've got that little A in the instrument cluster there. As I mentioned, that one is going to, when we've got the vehicle, actually I'll show you. So we've got the vehicle in drive right now. I've got it in park. We've got our little A button there. But if I take my foot off the brake, the vehicle's in place. So it locks it in place for us. It's a neat feature. Once we press the brake, the gas I should say, that's going to get rid of that feature for us. Turn it off, I should say. Okay, here we go. Perfect. Okay, now one thing to point out, the gear shift, where you would normally find the gear shift, it is just a rotary dial now. I'm not gonna lie, that one does kind of play with you a little bit the first couple times you go for it. You've got a default, you naturally want to grab onto a gear shifter, but realistically this arm console is fairly low, so it's non-obtrusive. So realistically, do you need that old school shifter? It's really a matter of personal preference. So you're not going to be able to get it in the 2020 Escape. Unfortunately, you'd have to look at pre-2020 models in order to be able to get that feature. But I mean, realistically, like, it is as comfortable as I was expecting. It's nice. And it really depends, like, what do you need out of a vehicle? Like, do you need something that's all-wheel drive? Do you need something that's just front-wheel drive? Do you have a preference there? It is a matter of personal preference. Okay. Okay. It's very straightforward. It's... You know what, if you're looking for a vehicle to get you to A to B, if you're not the type of driver where you slam your foot down and you've got to be the fastest, the 1.5 liter engine is a good engine choice. It's not going to be the most powerful engine, but you can still tow a little bit with it. So again, really it is a matter of preference there. It's nice though. So this one is going to be a little bit of a shorter test drive in comparison. I'm just going to do a quick little once around. I probably won't take this thing on the highway just because we've already done that 1.5 engine before. But this is nice though. Okay, so my lane keeping system is turned on right now. So if I start to veer over into a lane, okay, it's giving me a warning, and then it started to turn the wheel and it's pulled me back over again. Now, having said that, this isn't a self-driving vehicle. So by no stretch can you just sit there and rely on it constantly making sure that you're always recentered in your lane. It's not the technology. The technology isn't available in the Escape as of yet for that to happen. Now, it's not there as of yet. Now, I say that because if you look at the upcoming technology in Ford vehicles, the 2021 F-150 is going to be introducing something that's completely unique to Ford vehicles, and that's going to be the ability to do hands-free driving. Now, that's a really neat feature because it's unlike anything on the market right now, because if you look at Tesla's self-driving vehicles, your hands do technically need to be on the wheel. with Ford's hand-free driving, the way that that system works is it's incredible. It essentially works off of your eye gaze. So it makes sure that you're actually looking at the road, but you can be completely hands-free. So as long as you're not dropped down and sleeping, whatever the case may be, that system will work for you. I'm actually really excited to be able to see the 2021s to see how that feature works, but it sounds like it's incredible technology, and it's great that Ford is really taking that leap forward into these newer driving technologies, which hopefully is going to eventually lead into an automatic or an automated vehicle, so self-driving vehicle. Will we see it? Maybe. We're definitely going to be seeing electrics before we end up seeing that, I think, especially in the Ford world. Okay. So lane keeping system again, same thing, is currently turned on. No traffic, so I'm just going to start to veer over into a lane. I get a warning signal, and then it starts to pull me back over again. What's this guy doing? What you doing, fella? Okay, so I got an interesting message there. So just a second ago, I'm going to try it again on this next street that I turned down, but it's actually something I never even noticed before. This is the first time I've ever noticed that message, but what happened was I started to veer over into a lane, but then it started to veer me over, so it recentered me, but I started veering over again, and then a message popped up saying that I should keep my hands on the steering wheel. So I'm just going to get up to speed to see that. Okay, I'm going to veer over, and it's going to start to pull me over. Actually, there's oncoming vehicles, so I'm not going to try that just yet. There we go, I'll try it now. Okay, so gently veer over. More oncoming traffic. Okay, slowly veer over. It's going to pull me back in. Oh, why don't I get that message again? Oh! All right, there we go. Let's try it again. So I'm going to slowly veer over. There we go. So it's recentered me again. I didn't get that same message though. Oh, so I got the steering wheel shake, but I didn't get that message. Oh, I'm going to have to try to recreate that now. How can I? Okay, and here. Oh, so it's recentered. Oh, there we go. Keep hands on steering wheel. Ah, there we go. Okay, so it does say keep hands on steering wheel. I hope I caught that on these things, but the message is there. And like I said, I've never noticed that before right now. So if you do get too many warnings because you're changing lanes without signaling, or veering over into a lane, I should say, so gently veering over, you will get a message on the steering. That is really neat. I've never noticed that before right now. You learn things every day. I love it. Love it. Very nice. Very nice. Oh, that's really cool. Okay, so a couple things. I've got the auto start stop system enabled, and I've also got the auto hold system. So, auto start stop, it turned off because I turned the fan speed back on, but the auto hold system, my foot's completely off. I could probably sit up here right now, but it's holding the vehicle in place. So I love that it's got the ability to do that if you want to stretch your legs out when you're at a stop. Very cool. There we go. Well, guys, that was the full review, the full overview of the 2020 Ford Escape SE. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned a little bit. If you have any questions, make sure you ask them down below. I really appreciate the feedback you guys have been giving me. It does seem like you're really enjoying it. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that like button and please subscribe to the channel because it does help the channel grow and it lets YouTube know that you guys are enjoying the content that I'm putting out. Until I see you next time, stay safe.